The Honourable Courtney Husos.
Mr Deputy President, I rise to make a contribution to this debate. Mr Deputy President, governing is about choices, and the choice tonight is clear. It is a choice between, on one hand, valuing families and time spent with loved ones, and on the other, the unchecked interests of big
don't really,
business.
but I'll put your name on.
It's a choice between well-earned leisure and unlimited days of work, between religious observance and celebration and the rampant pursuit of profit. This is about preserving the final vestiges of work-life balance in our modern economy. This amendment is about cutting the very final and few precious days that workers are guaranteed to be able to spend with their families. As members would be aware, I have spoken at length about my belief in the need for mutually beneficial workplace flexibility. I stress the need for it to be mutually beneficial. Nothing about this amendment is beneficial to employees. It is about forcing workers with the least amount of bargaining power to work on any day of the year. These changes mean an employee could be pressured to work on Boxing Day instead of spending time with their family, and not just in customer-facing roles either. In fact, the effect of these changes means a mother could be pressured to go to work stacking shelves in a store that's not even open. Can you imagine spending Boxing Day inside a closed store, stacking shelves with no interaction with anyone else instead of spending time with your kids and family? It's a shameful proposition. The worst part is that the Baird Grant government promised not to do this before the election. Many members of this chamber made promises to uphold these final 4.5 days as off-limits. This is a broken promise. Now let me address a number of arguments mounted by the government. The government seems to think that there's some magical pot of money that can only be spent on Boxing Day. There is no economic benefit because purchasing is simply shifted, not created. A study conducted in 2012 showed that in Victoria, where trading has periodically been allowed and disallowed on Easter Sunday, that there was no net increase in sales over the month as a result of the trading being allowed. People simply spent their money over a longer period of time. Moreover, there is no net financial gain for workers either. As members may be aware, wages are set as a proportion of sales over a month. This means that they may receive additional penalty rates for working on Boxing Day, but they will lose an equivalent amount of work at some point later in the month. But, Mr Deputy President, worst of all, this is unfair for families. The current arrangements for Boxing Day trading, limited to specific areas, allow large stores to call upon their thousands of workers from right across the Sydney Basin. Even with this arrangement, 35% of SDA delegates and 65% of the SDA members generally feel forced to work. How can anyone genuinely say that only volunteers will work if this bill passes through tonight? This will impact on country kids who want to return home for Christmas or take their families home. On a personal note, I would like to note that today would have been my grandfather's 85th birthday. Many of my cherished memories with him, especially after I moved to Sydney, were over several days of celebrating Christmas each year. For those opposite who say that they represent country communities, to stand silent on this bill is an absolute disgrace.
Are you surprised?
As other members have canvassed, there are also issues of road safety, for blended families, or even simply for both sides of extended families.
I'm not sure of that.
Mr Deputy President, there's but 6 weeks until Christmas. Plans have been made, plane tickets booked. You bring the ham, we'll bring the turkey. And now this mean-spirited government wants to take the rug out from some of our most low-paid, casualised workers and make them work instead, perhaps behind closed doors. Mr President, let me make this point because I think it's an important one. Christmas and Easter are the two holiest celebrations on the Christian calendar. There are many Christians who attend church only on these occasions, and I note the extensive advocacy from a number of Christian leaders. Other members have quoted from many letters that they have received, from the Archbishop of Sydney, from the Anglican Diocese, from the Director of Ministries from the New South Wales and ACT Baptist churches, from Engadine Community Church, from the Catholic Archdiocese of Sydney, from the Catholic Diocese of Parramatta, from the Uniting Church Synod in New South Wales and ACT, from the Catholic Archbishop of Sydney, from the Anglican Archbishop of Sydney, from the Bishop of Broken Bay. And let me read but one passage of this. It says, "The New South Wales community should be permitted to attend religious services, to serve as volunteers, to simply spend valuable time with their family and the wider community on these special days. Workers should not be considered as mere tools for the creation of goods and services. All men and women are created in the image of God and have equal and inherent worth." Now, whilst I celebrate Christmas with my family, I appreciate that not every family does. But every family has the right to reserve time to spend together. Let me take this opportunity to place on the record my thanks to the tireless work of Bernie Smith and the SDA for their Take the Time campaign and their advocacy on behalf of some of the lowest paid, casualised workers who will be so adversely affected by these draconian changes. Mr Deputy President, other members have stated at present retail shops can trade for 360.5 days each year. There are only 4.5 days where trading is not allowed. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and the Anzac Day half day before 1 p.m. Mr Deputy President, the consequences of our actions in here can be broad, profound and wide-ranging. I would ask all members to consider this. Supporting this amendment will mean that hundreds of thousands of families will not be able to spend Christmas together. On Christmas morning this year, I hope that those opposite will be able to take comfort in knowing that they have supported families across our state to celebrate the season with those they most love. Sadly, it seems they will not be so comforted, and on a day that I'm sure they would never trade away for themselves, they have done the opposite. So I sincerely appeal to the members opposite and to the crossbench to support families and not support this bill.